The sun was low over the dusty colony town of Delmar's Edge. The air smelled like old metal, burnt wires, and dry heat. Eli, a human mechanic with grease on his hands and tired eyes, was locking up his shop for the night. He had no plans for the evening, no family waiting, just cold noodles and silence in his room. Then he heard something, a soft sound, like footsteps mixed with a faint whimper. Eli turned around slowly, scanning the alley behind his workshop. At first, he saw nothing, broken crates, metal scraps, and shadows. But then, movement. She was there, on her knees in the dirt. An alien woman, thin like a stick, her skin a soft blue, glowing slightly under the setting sun. Her white hair was tangled and dirty, her clothes torn like rags. She was crawling toward a piece of old bread someone had dropped near the trash pile. Her hands were shaking, her lips dry and cracked. Eli stood still, unsure if she was real or a ghost. Then she reached for the bread and collapsed. "Hey!" Eli shouted, rushing forward. He dropped beside her, gently turning her over. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes closed. Her bones stuck out from under her skin, and strange marks, almost like burn scars, wrapped around her wrists. He didn't know who she was, where she came from, or how she ended up here. But he knew one thing: she needed help. Without thinking, Eli scooped her into his arms. She was light, too light for someone her size, as he carried her. Her head leaned against his chest, whispering something he couldn't understand. He brought her inside his small home behind the shop, laid her on the couch, grabbed water and the last of his soup from the pot, carefully. He lifted her head and poured a little water into her mouth. She coughed, then opened her eyes, slowly, bright silver eyes, wide and frightened. "It's okay," Eli said gently. "You're safe now." She tried to sit up, but he stopped her. "Don't move, just rest," he said. Placing the bowl of soup in her hands, she looked at the bowl like it was a gift from the stars. She ate slowly, using her fingers, never looking away from him. Like a wild animal, unsure if this human would hurt or help, Eli sat on the floor near the wall. Letting her feel space, she finished the bowl, then held it close to her chest like she was afraid it would disappear. "What's your name?" he asked. No answer. He tried again, this time slower. "Name." "You? What's your name?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Sira, Sira," Eli repeated with a nod. "I'm Eli." She blinked, then hugged the bowl tighter. He noticed her bare feet were bruised, her knees scraped and bleeding. She must have walked a long way. Maybe from the desert, maybe farther. But why? And from what? That night, Sira sat curled on the corner of the couch. Refusing to sleep in the bed, Eli gave her a blanket and sat quietly at the table, pretending to read, but he was watching her. She watched him too, never blinking for long, always alert. He wondered what had happened to her, what had broken her so deeply that she flinched at every small sound. Then, just before midnight, she said something. "Thank you." Her voice was soft, and her eyes didn't meet his. But it was the first time she had spoken more than a word. "You're welcome," Eli replied, smiling gently. He didn't ask for her story. Not yet. Some wounds speak louder in silence. As he turned off the lights and climbed into his bed, he thought about her. About how someone so broken could still say thank you. About why she looked at bread like it was treasure. He didn't know it yet. But the moment he picked up that alien girl from the dirt, his whole life had already started to change. The next morning, Eli woke to the smell of warm metal and the hum of his repair shop coming to life. But something else filled the air, something quiet and soft. Breathing, he turned his head slowly. And there she was, Sira, the alien girl, sitting on the floor beside his bed, knees tucked into her chest. Her silver eyes watched him without blinking. She had wrapped herself in the same blanket he gave her. She hadn't touched anything, not even the fruit he left on the table. "Sira," he said gently, sitting up, "why didn't you sleep on the couch?" "I don't like to be alone," she whispered. Her voice trembled, as if the words themselves were heavy. Eli felt something twist inside his chest. This girl. She wasn't just homeless, she was haunted. He stood and moved slowly, like not to scare her. "I'm going to make something to eat, okay?" She nodded, barely. He cooked quietly just some eggs, toast, and reheated soup. He set the plates on the table. Pulled out a chair for her, but she didn't move. "Sira." "You can come sit," he said softly. She looked at the food. Then back at him. "No," she said, shaking her head slowly. "Not if you don't sit too." Eli blinked, surprised. She had refused food all morning until now. He pulled out his own chair and sat across from her. Only then did she crawl up onto the seat, like she was afraid the chair would disappear. She waited for him to take the first bite. Only after he did, she began to eat. Still watching him, her hands were slow. Her posture tense, every movement careful. Silent, controlled, she didn't eat like someone who was hungry. She ate like someone who had been punished for eating after the meal. She picked up both plates without being asked and carefully washed them in the sink. She didn't speak, didn't ask, just did it, like someone trained to serve. "Sira," Eli asked, "where did you come from?" She froze, hands under the water. "I don't remember," she whispered. Then turned off the tap. He didn't push. Instead, he handed her a towel and pointed toward the couch. "Let's rest a bit," he said, smiling. "You don't have to do everything." She sat down, slowly wrapping the blanket back around herself. He sat nearby, not too close, giving her space. They stayed like that, in silence. The sound of wind humming outside. Later, a customer arrived. Eli stepped outside to fix a broken hover cart. He told Sira to stay inside, to rest, to lock the door. But when he returned, she was gone. His heart dropped. He ran into the back alley. Then the front street, calling her name, nothing. Then he saw her curled behind a trash bin, hiding. Two men from the next building had walked past. Laughing and loud, she thought they were coming for her. He walked to her slowly, crouched down. "You're safe here," he said, gently placing a hand near her shoulder, not touching. "No one will hurt you." Tears welled in her silver eyes. But she didn't let them fall, I thought. "They were guards," she said, her voice shaking. Eli helped her up, carefully, and led her back inside, once safe again. She sat on the floor near his chair, not on the couch. He brought her tea and offered her a small chocolate from a tin. She held it in both hands, staring at it like it was made of gold. "I never had this before," she said. "Try it," he said, smiling. She didn't for the first time since she arrived. Her lips formed something close to a smile. "Sweet," she said softly. "It's sweet," he chuckled. "Yeah, it is." Then she asked something strange. "Why are you kind to me?" Eli paused, looking into her eyes. "Because you needed help," he answered. "And I was there." She looked down at her hands. Then whispered, "Last time I asked for help, I was chained." His heart stopped for a beat. He didn't say anything back, didn't ask more. He just reached for a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. And this time, she didn't flinch. That night, she sat beside him as he worked on a broken circuit board. Quiet, still, but not afraid anymore. When he offered her a screwdriver, she took it. When he laughed, she watched him with something soft in her eyes. Not love, not yet, but something close. And when he stood to go to bed, she whispered, "Can I stay in the same room again?" He nodded. She curled up near the corner of the bed, not touching, just close enough to feel safe. And as Eli turned off the lights, he wondered, what kind of past had left this beautiful creature afraid to eat alone? And why did he already care so much about her? The wind howled through the outpost the next morning, shaking loose metal signs and filling the air with red dust. Eli was in his workshop early, working on a hover engine with half his tools missing. He was used to quiet mornings, but today, something was different. Sierra was humming a soft tune, strange and alien, like wind in a canyon. She stood near the window, wrapped in the old blanket. Staring at the rising sun, her face looked peaceful for once. Not scared, not cold, just calm. Eli watched her for a moment, forgetting about his tools. He didn't want to break the silence, but when he moved, a wrench slipped and clanged to the floor. Sierra jumped, flinched hard, and backed into the wall, her eyes wide, breathing fast. "I'm sorry," Eli said quickly. Hands raised, it was just a wrench. Nothing else. She slid down the wall, knees pulled to her chest. "I thought it was a chain," she whispered. Eyes not meeting his, Eli slowly walked over, sat a few feet from her. "What do you mean?" he asked softly. She didn't answer at first. Then, with trembling fingers, she pulled the blanket off her wrists. The scars were clearer now, too deep. Dark lines around each wrist, circular, burned in, as if some device had been there for a long time. Not just bruises, not just marks, these were slave chains. Eli felt a fire rise in his chest, not anger at her, but at whoever had done this. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low. She stared at her hands. "They called me Item 47C, she said slowly. "Not Sierra. Not a person. Just a number." Eli's hands curled into fists. "Where?" Sierra swallowed hard. "A mining ship. They bought me when I was 14, said I'd help pay for food and fuel. But I never saw money, never saw freedom. How did you escape?" he asked. She looked toward the sky. "One day, the ship crashed on a dry moon. I ran, hid for days, ate bugs, drank engine coolant." Her voice cracked. "Then I found a cargo freighter, snuck in. Ended up here." Eli didn't speak. He couldn't. His chest felt heavy, like someone had placed a stone inside it. Sierra had lived through hell and still found the strength to sit in his home, to smile, even for a moment. "I thought you'd chain me too," she said, her voice barely a breath. "I'd never," Eli said, quickly, firmly. "I know that now," she whispered, "but it took me days to believe it." He moved closer, slowly, gently placing his hand on the floor between them. Palm up. She stared at it for a long moment, then placed her own hand on top of his. Cold fingers, warm touch. Later that day, while Sierra rested, Eli searched his toolbox for spare power cells. While digging through a rusted bin, his hand hit something solid. He pulled it out, an old metal collar. From a salvaged droid, just junk, he thought, tossing it on the workbench. But Sierra had seen it. Her scream pierced the air. Sharp like a blade, she backed into a corner, eyes wild, shaking her head. "No, no, no. Please don't put it on me again." Eli rushed over, realized what she'd seen. "It's not for you, Sierra. It's junk. It's for broken robots." She collapsed to the floor, hands covering her face. He dropped to his knees beside her. "I'm sorry. I should have thrown it out. It burned me," she whispered, voice raw. "If I didn't obey." It burned. Eli stood up, walked straight to the furnace, and threw the collar inside. Together, they watched it melt metal, turning red, then dripping away like poison. She didn't speak again for hours. But when he brought her tea that night, she took it with both hands. And when he sat beside her, she didn't move away. They sat together on the couch, close but not touching. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. For a moment, they didn't feel like two broken strangers. They felt like something whole, something healing. And as the stars blinked outside the small window, Sierra whispered, "Thank you for breaking the chain." Eli didn't reply. He just placed his hand over hers. silently promising he would never let anyone hurt her again. Asterisk, it had been 5 days since Sierra first stepped into Eli's life. The bruises on her skin had begun to fade, but the bruises in her heart, those still stayed. Eli never asked for more than she could give. He gave her food, space, kindness, and a name that wasn't a number. One afternoon, the wind outside roared with a storm. Dust swept through the metal cracks of the colony inside the shop. Eli worked on a power inverter while Sierra quietly organized spare parts. She liked helping now, liked knowing she had something to do. Something real. Eli looked over and smiled. "You're getting good at that," he said. Sierra looked up and smiled back. "Just a little. Feels peaceful," she replied. "Like I belong somewhere. But peace doesn't last long on the edge of the galaxy." While searching for a missing power coupler, Eli opened a crate he hadn't touched in years. Inside were old salvage pieces, scrap metal, burnt cables, and a black metal object with a blinking light. He pulled it out. Confused, it was a collar. But unlike the rusted droid one he melted earlier, this one still worked. A red light blinked in the center. There was a number etched into the side for 7C. Eli's breath caught. He looked at the doorway. Sierra was frozen there. Her eyes locked on the collar. "No," she whispered, voice breaking. "Not that one." Eli dropped it instantly, stepping back. "Sierra." "I didn't know." She didn't move, didn't blink. "That's mine," she said softly. "The one they used. The one they controlled me with." The silence stretched like wire. Sharp and tense, Sierra walked forward, slowly. Like a ghost approaching her grave, she picked up the collar with trembling hands. "Every time I disobeyed," she said, "it shocked me. Burned me." She turned the collar in her hands, her fingers tracing the old burns that matched her wrists. "They said I was defective, too quiet, not playful enough. They gave me one meal every 2 days. They called me scrap girl. Not even worth repairing." Eli's stomach turned. No creature, no being, no person should ever be treated that way. Without a word, Sierra walked to the workbench. She picked up a heavy cutting tool. Her hand shook, but she held the collar firm. Then, with one deep breath, she brought the cutter down. Sparks flew, metal screamed, and the collar snapped in half. The blinking red light died instantly. Sierra dropped the pieces into the bin and stepped back. Her shoulders rose and fell fast, her hands still shaking, but her face showed something new: freedom. Eli stepped forward, offering his hand. She didn't take it. Not this time. Instead, she stepped into him and hugged him tight. Not like a scared girl hiding, but like someone choosing to hold on. He wrapped his arms around her, slowly. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Later that night, after dinner, Sierra sat by the window. She held a piece of the broken collar in her hand, not as a chain, but as a reminder. "I want to keep this," she said, "so I never forget what I escaped." "You sure?" Eli asked, gently. "Yes," she nodded. "It's part of me. But it doesn't control me anymore." That night, she didn't sleep in the corner. She climbed onto the bed and curled up beside Eli. Not touching, but close. Her eyes stayed open for hours, listening to his heartbeat, slow, steady, human, but outside. The wind wasn't the only thing moving. A small ship landed quietly beyond the outpost border. Its surface was sleek, black, and marked with an old symbol one Sierra knew too well. Inside the ship, a tall alien figure stepped out. Holding a hologram, the image was blurry, but clear enough: blue skin, white hair, scarred wrists, target 47C. Status: asset retrieval required, back in the workshop. Eli and Sierra slept in silence, unaware. But something cold was coming, and it wasn't just another storm. The night was quiet. Stars blinked above the dusty colony like cold lanterns in the dark. Eli slept peacefully, one arm hanging off the bed. But Sierra, she couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch with her knees hugged to her chest, staring at the half-melted collar on the table. It was broken now, silent, powerless, but memories don't melt like metal. Her scars still itched when she thought too much. And tonight, her chest felt tight, like something bad was coming. She stood up and moved to the window. The desert wind whispered across the sand, but then a shadow moved, not the wind, not a wandering animal. Something darker, a ship, black as midnight, had landed far off beyond the colony line. Her breath caught in her throat. She backed away from the window. Heart pounding. "No, no, no," she whispered. "They found me." The next morning, Eli stepped out into the workshop. Stretching, he found Sierra already awake, cleaning tools that didn't need cleaning. Her hands were too fast, too tight, didn't sleep. He asked. She shook her head. "Bad feeling?" Eli frowned, but didn't press. He handed her a cup of warm broth, hoping it would help, just as they sat down. The door buzzer rang. A tall figure stood outside. Broad shoulders, dark armor, and a visor that reflected the morning sun. He had no expression, just the cold look of someone who followed orders, not feelings. "Can I help you?" Eli asked, stepping outside and closing the door behind him. The man held out a hologram screen. A face flickered on a pale blue skin, white hair, scarred wrists. Sierra, but younger, thinner, terrified. "We're searching for a runaway," the man said in a low voice. "Asset for 7C. Eli's spine stiffened. "She's not here," he lied without blinking. "I run a shop." "Not a shelter." The man didn't blink either. "She's valuable property," he said. "Dangerous if cornered." Eli felt rage crawl up his throat. "She's not property," he snapped. "And she's not dangerous." The man tilted his head. "I didn't say she was here," he said calmly. "But now I'm sure." Eli realized his mistake. He turned to step back inside, but the man moved faster. A metal hand grabbed his shoulder, pushing him back. "I'll search the place," the man said coldly. Eli shoved the hand off, not without a warrant. "Not on this planet." The man paused, eyes scanning Eli's face like reading a screen. "I'll be back with one," he said, voice flat. "Don't hide her." "It won't help." He turned and walked away, boots thudding like hammers. His ship hovered in the distance, black and silent inside. Sierra had heard everything. She stood against the wall, shaking. "They came for me," she whispered. "They'll take me back." "No," Eli said firmly, locking the door. "They won't, but they have the right," she said. "I was bought, tagged, tracked. I don't care," he said. "You're not a number. You're not theirs." He grabbed a dusty satchel, stuffed some tools, maps, dried food. "We're leaving," he said. Before he comes back, Sierra hesitated. "I don't want to run forever," she said softly. "I want to stop being afraid." Eli turned to her. "Then we stop running when we find a place where no one can find you." Sierra looked at him, really looked. She saw the fire in his eyes, the strength in his voice. He wasn't just helping her now, he was with her. She nodded slowly. "Okay." Before sunset, they were gone. Eli loaded his old transport bike with supplies. Sierra rode behind him, arms wrapped around his waist. Eyes scanning the sky, they rode into the desert, toward the abandoned canyons behind them. The black ship rose into the sky again, cold, silent, watching inside the ship. The bounty hunter stared at the empty workshop. He found the broken collar still on the table. He picked up one half, turned it over in his hands. "She's not broken," he muttered to himself. "She's fighting." He activated his comms. "Target escaped," he reported. "Tracking in progress, back on the bike." Sierra leaned her head against Eli's back. "You didn't have to do this," she said. They might chase you too now. Eli kept his eyes on the horizon. I'd rather be hunted with you, he said, than watch them chain you again. And in that moment, Sierra felt something new. Not just safety. Not just kindness, but something closer to home. The desert stretched for miles. Red dust swirled around them as the sun dipped low behind the cliffs. Eli's transport bike sputtered, climbing the final slope of a narrow, rocky path. Behind him, Sierra held tight, her arms wrapped around his waist. Her eyes scanned the sky every few minutes, looking for shadows, ships, anything. At the top of the hill stood a broken sign, barely readable. Observation Station 07 abandoned. Beyond it, a wide steel door, half buried in the mountain rock. Eli stopped the bike, took off his gloves, and turned to Sarah. This used to be a weather station, he said. It has solar power, backup water. And no one's used it in years. Sarah looked at the door like it was a question. Are we safe here? She asked. Eli nodded. For now, they pushed open the heavy door. Metal creaking loud through the silent air inside. The old station smelled like dust and cold air. Broken screens lined the walls, old bunks covered in sheets of sand. But it was shelter, and it was theirs. Eli fixed the generator panel while Sierra explored quietly. She found a small room at the back, just big enough for a mattress. A lamp and a mirror. She stood in front of the mirror. Touching her reflection, "Who am I now?" she whispered to herself when the lights flickered on. She stepped back, startled. Eli peeked in from the hallway, smiling. "Not bad for a hideout, right?" She smiled gently. "It's more than I've had in years." That night, they sat near a heater vent, eating dried fruit and old soldier rations. Sierra looked at Eli for a long time, then spoke. "There's something I never told you." Eli looked up from his cup. "What is it?" She stared at her hands, nervous. "I wasn't just a slave. I was born on Luthor Prime, capital of the Luthor Union. My mother was second in command to the royal house. I was considered a noble child." Eli blinked. "Stunned? You were royalty." Sierra nodded slowly. "Yes, but it meant nothing when the Civil War began. My family was attacked. The house burned. I was taken by soldiers who sold people like cargo. They cut my hair, erased my name, tagged me." Eli sat silently. Letting her speak, Sierra continued, voice trembling. "I never saw my mother again, but I kept this." She reached into her torn satchel and pulled out a glowing pendant. It shimmered like moonlight, shaped like a blooming flower with a single star in the center. "This is the crest of House Viarn," she said, placing it in Eli's palm. "It proves I'm not just a number." Eli turned it in his hand. "Watching the soft light pulse like a heartbeat, Sarah," he said, voice soft. "You don't have to prove anything to me." She looked at him. "Truly looked. You don't understand," she said. "This could change everything if I send out a signal with this crest. They might come for me. They might protect me." Eli frowned. "But what if they don't? What if it brings the wrong people?" Sierra hesitated, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'm tired of running. If there's a chance, Seni Chensai can go home." "I have to try." Eli nodded slowly. "Then we try," he said. "But only when you're ready." Later, while Sierra slept in the small room, Eli climbed to the station's rooftop. The night sky was clear. Stars burning bright over the black desert. He held the pendant in his hand, watching it glow. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he'd protect her. No matter what, even if it meant fighting soldiers, bounty hunters, or even kings. Suddenly, a small screen on the roof blinked. "Incoming transmission, signal code, Verstar." Eli stared at it, frozen. Had she activated the crest in her sleep? Or had someone responded to it first? He ran downstairs, heart pounding, but when he entered her room, she was already awake. "I felt something," she whispered. Eli showed her the blinking screen. Sierra's eyes widened. That's my planet Seal," she said. "The capital." She walked to the screen, hand trembling. "Should I answer it?" Eli stepped beside her. "I'll stand with you," he said. "Whatever happens," Sierra took a deep breath, then touched the screen. A voice came through the speakerhold. "Wise and trembling, Princess Sarah. Is that really you?" Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "It's me." Eli watched as the stars outside blinked quietly. The past was no longer chasing her. Now, the future had started calling. The air inside the mountain station had changed. The cold, heavy feeling of fear was gone. Now it felt like something new had arrived. Hope. The message was real. The crest had worked. And someone from Sierra's home had finally answered. Eli stood beside her as she listened to the voice on the screen. It was an older alien woman, draped in royal robes with silver streaks in her hair. Her voice shook when she spoke. "Your mother still lives," she said. "She never gave up searching for you," Sierra gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Eli could see her knees trembling, her eyes wide. "I thought she died in the fire," she whispered, tears falling freely. The woman on the screen continued, "The war is over. Peace has returned. You are the last blood of House Viron, and your name is still written in the stars. We have ships near your system. We can bring you home." Sierra looked at Eli, her heart torn between two worlds. He smiled gently, even though something inside him tightened. "You should go," he said softly. "This is your chance to be free. Truly free." She stepped forward and hugged him without saying a word. But her grip told him everything she didn't want to let go. 3 days later, a royal escort ship arrived. It landed quietly in the canyon below, guarded by a small honor guard of Luthari warriors. Sierra wore a clean robe Eli found in an old locker. Tied with a ribbon she made from a sheet, she didn't look like a slave anymore. She looked like who she really was, a daughter of the stars. The commander of the royal ship bowed deeply when she stepped outside. "Princess," he said, "we are honored." Sierra turned to Eli, who stood at the edge of the ramp. She held his hand tightly, like the wind would pull him away. "You're not coming with me?" she asked, her voice small. Eli shook his head, trying to smile. "This is your world, Sierra. Not mine. You have people waiting for you. A family, a home. But you are my home," she said, voice cracking. "You gave me food, a name, freedom. You held me when I was afraid." He looked down, not trusting his voice. "I'm just a mechanic from a dusty planet," he said. "You're a princess." She took a deep breath, then did something no one expected. She turned to the commander and said, "Delay departure." She stepped in front of Eli, reached into her robe, and pulled out the crest. Then she knelt. Gasps echoed from the guards. The commander stepped forward, confused. "Your Highness?" "What are you?" She held up her hand to silence him, then looked up at Eli, her voice steady. "Eli of Earth," she said. "You once gave me a piece of bread when I was nothing. You gave me a couch, a voice, a name, and a second life. I don't want to go back to royalty alone. I want to bring you with me, not as a servant, not as a bodyguard, but as my husband." Eli's heart stopped. The air felt still, like the whole world had paused. "Marry me," she whispered. "Not because I'm a princess, but because I'm me, the girl who stole your blanket, broke your tools, and watched you fix wires with your teeth." Eli laughed, choked, eyes shining. "I thought I was fixing the galaxy," he said, "but really, I was just fixing my heart." He pulled her up and held her close. "You already had me the day you looked at me like I wasn't a monster," he said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The guards lowered their heads in respect. The commander tapped his chest, then by royal decree. You are both to be escorted with honor when the ship lifted into the sky. Eli stood beside Sarah at the viewing deck. Below them, the desert looked smaller. The stars ahead looked brighter. Think your people will accept me? He asked with a grin. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. They won't have a choice, she said, because the last time I made a choice. I chose you as they crossed into orbit, hand in hand. A poor mechanic and a lost alien girl no longer lost. They left behind a world of pain, of collars, of hunger, and flew toward a future written in starlight, where the galaxy would know the story of a girl who was once starving, and the human who fed her hand became her forever.